Thank you all. It's really a pleasure to be here. I'm Paul Marty. I'm the professor of the School of Information. I'm the Associate Vice Provost for Academic Innovation at Florida State University. And if you'll indulge me, I know I'm standing between you and the end of a very long day, but I would like to start with a story. So, my father worked on the Plato project at the University of Illinois. How many people here have heard of the Plato? All right, got a few hands up. Excellent, fantastic. If you haven't heard of Plato, I highly recommend this book, The Friendly Orange Glow. Developed in the 1960s, Plato was the world's first network computer system for higher education. Decades ahead of other computer systems at its time, Plato's technological advancements included touchscreen plasma displays with vector map graphics, integrated audio-video systems, and groundbreaking applications such as electronic mail, instant messaging, and massively multiplayer online role-playing games. I grew up with Plato. We moved to Illinois in 1972 when my father, who pioneered the development of language learning laboratories since the late 1940s, was recruited by the University of Illinois to develop language lessons for Plato. We had a Plato 4 terminal that looked just like that in our house in 1974. The reason we had that terminal in our house, by the way, is that that was the only way my mother could get a response from my father. He refused to answer the phone, but if she instant messaged him, Plato, right, on Plato, he would respond. I was a kid at the time, and every day I would come home from school and I would sit in front of that terminal, bathed in the famous friendly orange glow of the Plato screen, and joyfully complete one Plato lesson after another. I learned French, I learned math, I learned genetics, I learned chemistry. I loved Plato and I loved learning on Plato. And I told this story once to a professor here in Florida State University's College of Education, and she took a long, hard look at me and said, well, that explains everything. But in all seriousness, the reason that the Plato project worked so well was that its goal was to support and encourage individual learning and individualized instruction where students could use educational technologies to learn at their own pace. And in doing that, Plato's many innovations laid the foundation for educational software, today's learning management system, and today's AI-driven tutoring systems. And I tell you this story, not to reminisce about early educational computational projects, but to remind us that, as has been said, we're actually good at this. There is a long history of universities dealing with disruptive technologies, and that history is full of educational technologies like Plato that are forgotten today, but nevertheless greatly influence the way we think about learning. And people like to say that higher education is not any good at adapting to disruptive technologies, but that isn't true at all. We may not necessarily be fast at it. I mean, any place that takes 18 months to adopt a syllabus, but we're steady and we're thoughtful and we actually know what we're doing. And every time there is a new way to access, to manage, to create, or to disseminate knowledge, universities find a way to rethink what they're doing and figure out a new way forward. And that is not an easy thing to do. Coping with change is hard. Often it's one step forward, one step back. One day Plato is a revolutionary new innovative learning technology, and the next day it's gone, a casualty of the PC revolution. Change is hard, change is scary, change is also inevitable, and universities have been looking for ways to innovate for a long, long time. Put it this way, we are no longer in a world where you go to university to hear a lecture or listen to the lecturer read to you, from the Latin lectio, to read. The only copy of a book that exists, the one book that you would like to read, or you can't find anywhere else, and even if you could, you probably couldn't read it anyway. We haven't been in that world for a long, long time. This is an illustration from a medieval manuscript from the British Library. There have been a lot of changes since then. And of course, those changes have not come easy. I mentioned that my dad was an early developer of language learning technologies. He built the first language course available on audio tape and the first language lab in Middlebury in 1948. I don't have a picture of his lab in 1948. That's a picture of his lab at Collins College in 1962. As you might imagine, there was a lot of resistance at the time to the idea that students would learn from a machine at their own pace. But today, how many people here learn from Duolingo? And let's not even get started on the PC revolution. How many people here identify as being part of the Oregon Trail generation? Right? I mean, the fact is that we have lots and lots of research and experience and expertise about technology and education, and universities have a lot of experience adapting to change. But unfortunately, no matter how many times we adapt to disruptive technologies, no matter how much experience you have doing that, it's still disruptive, even if today you're less likely to die of dysentery. And of course, one of the things that makes this all so challenging is that the pace of technological change has been increasing so dramatically. When we talk about universities adapting to change, whether that's chalkboards or calculators or computers or online learning, we've often had more time to adapt than we have now. But every new innovation gets adopted by people faster and faster. I'm sure you've all seen variations on this chart. Years until these technologies were adopted by 25% of the US population. The important takeaway here is that every new technology that comes out gets adopted faster and faster and faster. And as a result, universities have less time to adapt with each new innovation. And here we go from electricity, the telephone, radio, television, the personal computer, the mobile phone, the web, smartphones, right? ChatGPT, it took ChatGPT 2 months to reach 100 million users. That's an exponential growth curve that is reshaping higher education. And when ChatGPT emerged on the scene as a publicly available tool in November of 2022, that's what it looked like at that time, by the way, if you remember, universities knew that they needed to change again. But how? The good news is that our faculty have been working with and researching AI and machine learning for decades already. We have experts in AI in multiple departments all across campus. Our faculty have been receiving grants and teaching courses on AI and machine learning for many, many years. I just wanted to put this picture up because that is the textbook that I learned AI programming from as an undergraduate student at the University of Illinois in 1991. That's the second edition. The first edition was published in '83. And of course, there are many older books on AI programming in that as well. I just happen to have any of them on my shelf so I could pull it off and take a picture. Here at FSU, our Office of Research has been encouraging interdisciplinary work in machine learning with collaborative collisions going back at least 5 years. And this very expo has been meeting since 2018. It's not like we didn't have the expertise. But the bad news was that when generative AI tools like ChatGPT, Gemini, Copilot, Claude, when these tools brought access to AI from a relatively small set of academic researchers and scientists and gave it to literally everyone, when that happened, most universities weren't sure how to respond. This is actually quite interesting. We had all the expertise we needed, we just couldn't access it. We saw it coming, and let me be clear, a lot of us saw it coming. All of us who were watching GPT 1.1, 2, and everything coming along, right? But we still weren't prepared. It was like a dam bursting. It was easy to feel overwhelmed and really easy to panic. So the first thing that I do when I talk to faculty, staff, and students across Florida State University is I tell them, don't panic. We know what we're doing. We will survive this. And I think this is a theme that we've heard over the course of the day. It may not be easy the next few years, but we will definitely come out on the other side. And we'll come out better than we were before. So instead of panicking, let's think about this as an opportunity to leverage innovation in academia. How can we use AI to rethink the purpose and the role of universities? To rethink how universities are able to respond effectively to radical change, and to rethink how universities are better able to proactively adopt innovative ideas. And that approach, I think, gives us the opportunity for a lot of very useful and interesting conversations across campus. So let's take a look at what those conversations look like. What do we tell our faculty and staff? What do we tell our students? What do we tell our administrators? So, what do we tell our faculty and staff? The first thing that I tell our faculty, and you've heard this before, we've been here before. Many people have argued that in many ways, this is the mid-1990s all over again. Think for a moment where you were in 1993. By the way, I said that line to a group of undergraduate students last month and they all stared at me. But think for a moment where you were in 1993. The internet, which for the past 30 years have been the province of scientists, researchers, and a few hobbyists, suddenly becomes easily available to everybody with the introduction of the World Wide Web. And of course, the world's first graphical web browser is the World Wide Web. The world's first graphical web browser, there we are, NCSA Mosaic, was released in September of 1993, which is, by the way, also Eternal September, if you have your Eternal September counter giveaway. And I would argue that the release of ChatGPT to the general public in November of 22 precisely parallels the release of this web browser in September of 1993, and that it took what was previously available only to a few scientists and made it available to a much broader audience. So if we think about that parallel, where 2022 was 1993, well, that means then when we think about AI in higher education, this is 1996, right? Remember, think about where you were in 1996. Yeah. 1996. There's no Google. There's no Netflix. There's no Facebook. Amazon is still being run out of Jeff Bezos' garage. Microsoft's Internet Explorer 1.0 is in a knockdown, drag-out fight with something called Netscape Navigator, which of course is the iteration of this. And a little church called Alta Vista is wondering why so many people keep coming to its website looking for a search engine. I don't know if you remember that. So yes, it was scary. It disrupted the higher education. But you know what else was going on? Universities across the country were taking advantage of this new disruptive technology and developing online classes and fully online degree programs. In fact, Florida State University's master's degree in library and information science went fully online as a 100% online degree program in 1996, tied with Illinois and Syracuse for the first fully online LIS program in the world. And I believe, someone from the College of Education, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think also tied with the College of Education for the first fully online program here at FSU. And I like to remind faculty of this when I talk with them about AI, because the fact of the matter is that we have done this before and we can do it again. And the first step in that process is to empower our faculty and our staff so that they can make the best decisions for their own academic practices. And I argue that we'll do that in two ways. First, we'll engage our faculty and staff as active participants in this process of adopting disruptive technologies so that they are able to evaluate and assess academic innovation so that they can see what works best for them. The more our faculty and staff understand the potentials of AI, both positive and negative, the more they're going to be able to play a leadership role in setting the agenda for AI on campus. And when it comes to AI in education at FSU, our philosophy here is pretty clear. I think you've heard this from a lot of our speakers. Academic innovation here at FSU is led by faculty from the ground up, with strategic guidance and support from the Office of the Provost, Information Technology Services, other units on campus. Faculty governance is a core tenet of the university system, and faculty decide what happens with artificial intelligence in their classroom. And that's important because when you look at why faculty are often skeptical about adopting new educational technologies, you'll see one of the reasons that they're skeptical is that they're often left out of the decision-making process. So in order to get around that skepticism, we need to be sure that all of our faculty are actively involved with all of those educational technology decisions, and their input is sought after and valued, and this is critically important, which is why last semester, when Florida State University partnered with Microsoft to empower its faculty to experiment with creating their own GPTs using Microsoft Copilot Studio, we had such a great positive response to this pilot test. Faculty across campus were participating in a pilot test where they created custom GPTs, gave them access to the course materials, syllabi, assignments, lectures, etc. We embedded those GPTs directly into Canvas so that then students in the class could ask questions of the GPTs that would then be answered based on the course materials. That gave us a deeper understanding of what worked and what doesn't for faculty and students alike when developing custom AI solutions for the classroom, and it made sure that our faculty were actively involved in those decisions. Second, we need to ensure that our faculty and staff have the information, the experience, and the resources that they need so that they can make an informed decision about their options moving forward. That's why we've been working closely with faculty, running workshops to introduce them to AI tools. I ran a whole bunch of ChatGPT workshops for FSU faculty a year ago, which were a lot of fun. But making sure the faculty know how to use these tools, what they can be used for, and the potential. We ran more than 300 faculty through these workshops. I swear every single one of them walked into these workshops only knowing one thing about ChatGPT, which is that students will use it to cheat. And 90 minutes later, they walked out with 100 other ideas. That's the sort of thing that we need to be able to do. That's why also at FSU, we're working very hard as Bobby mentioned, making sure that all of our faculty have access to the latest AI tools so they can understand their potential, making sure that all of our faculty, staff, and students have access to Microsoft Copilot so that they can be empowered to take part of this revolution, empowered to decide for themselves how they want to use these technologies in and out of the classroom. And one of the reasons we're doing this is that it helps our faculty see that this technology isn't magic. It's still very rough around the edges. We were talking on the panel about being on the bleeding edge, right? Being on the bleeding edge is difficult. Being on the bleeding edge is messy, right? And it's not easy to do. But if you're not on the bleeding edge, if you're going to wait for somebody else to work all the bugs out for you, well, then you've abdicated any chance you might have to shape the future. All right, so that's what we tell our faculty. What do we tell our students? Well, we tell our students, and I think you've heard over the course of the day, that education has irrevocably changed. And what I like to tell students is that universities are no longer places where you go to acquire information. And they've not been that for a very long time. We talk about the knowledge economy, right? Knowledge is not a rare commodity that it once was. Knowledge is increasingly available to everyone that has an internet connection. And in that world, what's the purpose of universities? I'm sure we've all heard a variation on this question over many years now. Right? Why a university if I can learn the same thing online for free over YouTube? And my answer to that question, I have this conversation with my students all the time, and my answer to that question is that higher education is not about learning things. Higher education is not learning how to apply the things that you learn so that you can define problems and develop solutions to those problems. And in a world where AI is ubiquitous, a world where everyone will have access to the same knowledge sets, where AI can give you answers to the questions that you ask, what will set humans apart from AI is how humans are able to mediate those answers for other people, to solve problems and to make the world a better place. In other words, in a world where knowledge is available to everyone, what you know is going to be a lot less important than how you know it and whether you can apply that and share that knowledge effectively with somebody else. And in that world, our students' most important skills moving forward are going to be their people skills, their communication skills, their networking skills, as Jonathan said, their empathy, their humanity, their ability to help and inspire others. Those are the skills that our students should be cultivating. And the funny story is that I used to be chair of our undergraduate program in information technology in the School of Information, and I told our IT students this all the time. People skills, not tech skills. They need to focus, our IT students, all students, need to focus far less on specific technology skills that will be outdated in 5 years and also easily outsourced to someone else, if not to an AI, and focus much more on their leadership skills, their communication skills, their management skills. I told our undergraduate students over and over again, your tech skills might get you the foot in the door, but it's your management skills that are going to get you your career. And that can be a very hard concept for students to grasp. But it's important that we recognize that education is about lifelong learning and building those human-to-human connections. We have now, thanks to AI, you've heard this today as well, the opportunity to raise the bar in our classrooms. We can move away from assignments that AI can do well and move toward activities that are more uniquely human. We can move away from assignments that are merely checking boxes for compliance, offering more engaging and more meaningful learning experiences. And yes, this is going to mean changing our assignments, changing our assessments, overhauling our courses and our curriculum. And yes, this is going to require support and assistance, and no, this is not going to be easy. But if we want our students to have careers, if we want our students to succeed, then they need to be able to answer the question, what's your value add? What can you do that AI cannot? And if our students don't have an answer to that question, if they can't demonstrate how they're better than the AI, then they're not going to have a career. And in many ways, we need to stop asking, what's this latest, greatest thing that AI can do? And instead ask, what's the thing that AI can't do? We should tell our students to do those things instead. I tell the students all the time, no one's going to pay you to copy and paste from ChatGPT. That's not a job. Nobody will pay you to do that, at least not for very long. We need to make sure that our students have the skills they need to use AI effectively and ethically to solve problems in the future so that they aren't left behind. And in my opinion, the future of higher education lies with creating an environment where students have the confidence to learn on their own, where they can creatively explore innovative solutions to complex challenges. And preparing our students for that future means rethinking our core curriculum to focus on giving our students an innovation mindset where they work in interdisciplinary teams and use all the technologies at their disposal to define problems and propose solutions to those problems. And you want to see that in action? Come over to the Innovation Hub at Florida State University and walk to Seminole Innovators at Work. It's an amazing interdisciplinary group of students solving real-life problems completely extracurricular to their class. And in that future, learning how to learn is going to be much more important than learning things. And in my view, the only way that our students are going to end up on the correct side of the AI divide, and let's be very clear, the AI divide is going to be significantly worse than the digital divide ever was. In that future, our students need to learn to love learning. They need to be good at explaining what they learn to other people, and they need to be able to do that in a way that emphasizes those human-to-human connections. Because when push comes to shove, it's our humanity that's going to carry the day, and our humanity that's going to encourage our students to reach for new heights. Finally, what do we tell our administrators? What do we tell our admin? Right? We tell them that innovation happens at the liminal edges between disciplines. We tell them that we need to create a culture of innovation that transcends those disciplinary boundaries. One of the nice things about large research universities like Florida State University is that we almost always have the expertise that we need to respond to new technologies and new innovations in place already. And faculty leadership is already an essential part of our institutional culture. Unfortunately, that expertise tends to be distributed, and our faculty tend to be isolated from each other. So we need to find a way to build a network that brings all that expertise together and allows the institution to make informed decisions about how best to move forward. Doing that requires a catalyst, something or someone to spark that reaction. Usually that's a faculty member, but faculty are already overworked and underpaid, so we need to explore ways to support faculty panelists who can bring these groups together. That's a role that upper admin can play through a strategic investment of resources and personnel to provide guidance for faculty-driven innovation and help steer the campus in a strategic direction in a way that breaks down the silos that divide us and gives us better ways to share information across departments and disciplines to access the expertise we know we have in a way that we can use more effectively. That's why at FSU we're building an innovation ecosystem with an infrastructure that's preparing universities to cope with new emerging technologies. That's why we have committees that Robbie talked about that are providing guidance to faculty and providing guidance, I should add, in a way that are ultimately generalizable to any emerging technology in the classroom, so that we're prepared not just for AI, but for whatever the future might bring. That's also why we have a very popular and strongly growing Faculty Innovators program that meets every other week in the Innovation Hub, where faculty from departments all across campus are getting together to talk about all the ways that new innovations like AI are transforming academia. Because the first step in building this innovation ecosystem starts with understanding that we're actually much better at innovating within our disciplines than across our disciplines. All of our academic structures are based around sharing within disciplinary boundaries and not outside those boundaries within our institution. And so moving forward from that means we need to figure out how do we break down those silos, how do we create the interdisciplinary connections that cross those barriers, how do we share information more effectively across departments, and how do we support our innovative faculty, staff, and students who are working as catalysts to solve those problems and forge new connections. So to summarize, when we talk about leveraging AI for academic innovation, we're talking about three things. First, we're talking about empowering our faculty and staff to be actively engaged in the evaluation and adoption of disruptive technology so that they can make the right decisions and lead the way in bringing new technologies into their teaching and research. Second, we're talking about preparing students for a future of teaching and learning in a world where access to knowledge is increasingly ubiquitous, so that they can be on the correct side of the AI divide. And then finally, we're talking about enabling administrators to remove the boundaries to stand in the way of interdisciplinary innovation and collaboration so that we can all find better ways to share across departments and disciplines so that we can all access and take advantage of the expertise we know we have. And if you want that in one sentence, we're changing the fabric of higher education to proactively adopt innovative ideas and to respond effectively to radical change. And why are we doing this? Because that's how we're going to prepare our institutions to deal not just with AI, but with any number of future innovations that have the potential to reshape higher education. The steps that we are taking today to prepare our faculty and staff, our students, and our administrators to deal with AI in our universities, those steps are not about AI qua AI. Those are about leveraging AI to build a culture of academic innovation where we are better prepared to handle disruptive technologies and deal with academic innovation writ large. And that's why It's been so wonderful to be here with you all day today. Because the things that we're talking about here are important conversations for the future of academia that get at how universities should respond not just to AI, but to any innovation. Because AI is just one of the many things that are coming down the pipeline, one of the many disruptive innovations that universities are going to need to handle. And we need to think about how we're going to be prepared for that future. Because our ability to cope with change, to adapt to disruptive technologies, to change the fabric of the institution, this needs to be part of our core, part of the culture of the university. Because if we can do this for AI, and we can do this for everything. Thank you very much.
Oh, great talk. We've discussed this before. One of the opportunities that I see with AI is an opportunity to loop back to the Renaissance, right? The ability to educate a student as a whole mind experience.
Yep.
Arts and education is, arts and sciences as a spectrum. Love your thoughts on that.
My thoughts on that is that this is an opportunity for us to rethink our general education requirements, and rethink our core graduation requirements across the whole university. I think we have a gift here to say, what is it that we want our students to be able to do moving forward? And that's a big picture change in what we think a classical liberal education should be. And I think Renaissance is a good word for it.
Thank you, Paul.
Sure. I'm happy. Is it being recorded? Okay. Great.
It's on the floor, you can pick it up. Well, having work for anybody who stayed this late.
Oh, wonderful.
Free planetarium tickets tonight.
Everybody for joining us today. This has been a lot of fun. Gordon, do you want to wrap up?
Yeah, I mean, it's great. It's great that everybody showed up. I think this is an exciting.
Oh, we have more questions. I'm sorry. Did we have more
Give him
questions?
a microphone.
Oh, I didn't have a microphone.
You know my relationship with microphones.
I
Right?
Do it anyway.
So anyway, thanks everybody. We're living in exciting times, no doubt. Now I would like to take slight issue with fantastic talk, and that is the situation is very, very different from the 1990s and all the previous times we've been in before. Because while before we had enhancement of education, never were we ever subjected to the potential replacement of the need.
Well,
Potential.
Potential. I mean, I didn't want to get into like be a Skinner and Skinner machines and
wanna get
everything, but I mean, we've been talking about this for a long
I'm
time.
thinking of you, Yan. You understand?
Yeah.
Anyway, so thank you, and Paul, Marty, and Chu and you on the organizing committee. So they had a big say in who actually was chosen to talk, and choices were very good. The talk were very good and very diverse. So if anybody has any comments or feedback or suggestions or anything, send mail to me or to Jennifer, like if you want to debate, have Zoom or anything you want. And that's basically it. And there's a couple parking tickets, parking vouchers. Anybody who uses it. Yeah, and my own colloquium that I advertise next week, I'm giving a talk on how I use education, how I use AI for education, all the different ways I've started using it in the last 2 years. And then doing this next Wednesday at 3:30 in the Black Science Library. So I'm very opinionated, okay? So this is Say that again?
That event online.
It's on Zoom as well. So you can send email and I'll send you the invite. I'm gonna have Jennifer send email to everybody who attends. Thanks, Gordon. Okay, so that's.
Thanks, everybody.
And